We have our lining and our inner facing together for our pocket flap. I'm going to go ahead and center the pocket on the design on the tapestry fabric. You're going to see me smoothing out the fabric quite a bit because I want to make sure that the bias of the fabric isn't pulling the design on the layer underneath in an awkward angle. So I'm going to be flipping over the edges just to make sure that all of the pattern for both the top and the bottom fabric line up. It is a bit time consuming, but when you're working with a design that you'd like to present on the garment, it's really nice to actually have it centered and even. I don't particularly like pinning when it's such a thick fabric. Before cutting, you usually end up having to shift it and realign it because it does tend to move a bit while you're pinning it, and it does affect and pull on the fabric while you're cutting, but this particular type of tapestry is relatively forgiving, and we're not being highly meticulous about every millimeter of the design, so it will work out just fine, I promise. So the goal is to have a uniform image for both of the pockets, and we've accomplished that. So we're going to go ahead and pin the right sides of the pocket to the right side of the pocket. So I started at the top with a side-facing pin. This tells me where to start and stop because I'm going to be leaving a hole on the seam so that I can flip the pocket inside out. If you've seen my other videos, you know that I pin sideways and I run my pins through the machine, which is, it's a risk that you take if you're willing to take it. I've taken my machine apart so many times that it's just, you know, it's something I do. I don't necessarily recommend it unless you're really confident about how your machine will handle pins and pins getting stuck. Deviating from the original pattern, I did a standard 5/8 inch seam allowance on the top part of the pocket cover, and I'm going to go ahead and use a 3/8 inch seam allowance along the detailed part because I actually like having a pretty broad pocket flap. The pattern itself tends to take away quite a bit of fabric after you've sewn it. And at some point you start to realize that your bobbin has run out of thread. Going back to a 5/8 inch seam allowance along the top. And I'm going to start my back stitch a good gap before we get to the pin, so I have plenty of room to flip it inside out. So the annoying thing is that no matter how hard I try, I can never get both those corners exactly the same unless I flip it over and do one of the corners exactly like I did the other. I'm not sure why that works out, but it does every time. And there we go. Now they match. So we're going to go ahead and trim and take off all the corners, trim down all the edges of the excess fabric. Now I'm leaving the 5/8 inch seam allowance where I have the hole because I want to have ample amounts of fabric to fold over and press so that I can get a nice seam on the top where you don't actually tell that there's a gap there. So we're going to go ahead and cut out the corners so that it'll lay flat when we flip it inside out. Clear nail polish or a fray stop, especially on the tapestry fabric because it's a woven jacquard, so it has a tendency to fray really badly. So anything that we cut close, we're going to go ahead and put some sort of fray stop on it so that it doesn't come undone. And then we're going to let it dry.